All of you guys look amazing. Can I just say?
So you're gonna give us some time for like about 30 minutes in?
I have it's like handwritten. It's really janky. But if you want me to like kind of like wave it,
Just so like
I can do that. I can do that. All right. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Let's see if I can get this big thing. Okay, yeah, let's get the aesthetic going. Oh my god, it moved here. Okay. All right, excellent. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good call. Okay, so 30 minutes.
just so we know it's like less.
So it's not like 15 minutes of the show.
Yeah, we're gonna see. Are y'all? US being like creative solutions. I love solutions. I'm looking forward to hearing all of Well, hi everyone. Hello, hi. Can you guys hear me? Looks online. Noise 3.
He's the best.
Hello. I'm not a tech person. Hi everyone, good afternoon. Hi everyone. Good afternoon everyone. How's everybody feeling? Great! Friday afternoon of the conference. You guys have been going since yesterday and I believe there's more programming going, so I hope you guys have been learning a lot. I've been watching a lot and tuning in, and for those friends that are also connecting, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you so much to IYC for putting this conference together, for Ali and his team, and also for the Salvation Army for hosting us in this space today. So for you guys that don't know, the Women Peace Security Agenda pretty much came into existence in 2000, when the UN realized that the women are important actors in implementing, creating, and monitoring all the questions and solutions that we have for gender studies. So right now we have 3 amazing panelists that I'm really excited to introduce to you all right now. First, we have all the way in the end, we have Mariam. Mariam Kiani is a Pakistan-based researcher, journalist, and social development practitioner. She holds a BA honors in history and political science and is currently working as a program analyst at the United Nations at the U.S. Institute for Peace. In this role, she provides programmatic support for organizations building peace in Pakistan program, working with the Pakistani government and civil society to improve citizen-centric governance, address multiple issues of climate security nexus, enhance women peace security agenda in Pakistan. I'm going to keep it there because there's a lot. And right next to her, we have Vanessa Basofuza. Vanessa is a women's rights advocate with 10 plus years of experience. She's founder of the Para Salvar Seu Coração. She provides free psychological and legal support to GBV survivors in Brazil. Currently pursuing an MA in Human Rights at Columbia University. Her research project focuses on WPS and in Brazil. And she is now writing her thesis in GBV in the Amazon. Welcome, Vanessa. And here right next to me we have Raven Ho. She is a grassroots activist with a decade of experience in gender, racial, and climate justice. She's co-founder of the Community Care Collective, focusing on mental and sexual health of youth empowerment. Raven has represented Australia in various youth forums and holds roles such as youth women policy advisor, and well-being health and youth counselor, youth commissioner. There's a lot of big words and a lot of big things that are being done here on the stage, so I'm going to jump right to it. So this is going to be a conversation. I know we have only one mic here, but there's a lot of important work that's to be done. But I feel like sometimes in the UN space, it's good to be in dialogue and in consultation.
There's one mic.
Oh, awesome. Does this one also work?
Yes.
The magic of television, y'all. So we'll start with our first question. Whoever would like to answer, just kind of go for it. What do you think are the biggest obstacles young people face when trying to participate in peace and security initiatives in your countries? How can governments and civil society work together to lower these barriers? Not all at once.
Hi.
Hello,
Yes.
thank you for that introduction. It's such an honor to be here sitting alongside such incredible women doing this powerful and important work. And of course, to ILS for hosting this. I think in terms of young people participating in peace and security initiatives and young women more particularly, because at this panel today we're speaking about the WPS agenda. There is, I think, in Pakistan, primarily the existing conditions of womanhood in Pakistan, which kind of multiply when we talk about issues of conflict. So because women are already marginalized from spaces of decision-making power and making decisions about peace and security when a conflict hits. And a conflict can be in the form of terrorism in our country, militarization, enforced disappearances, and more recently, of course, climate change, then these are exacerbated. So their conditions are exacerbated and which then leads them to further be marginalized from initiatives or being able to speak up on issues of peace and security. Of course, linked to this is state repression, where we feel in particular areas there is more state repression than others, certain topics that you can talk about, certain topics that you cannot. There's of course the issue of funding and access to resources, access to spaces, and spaces where youth is seen as equals and as actors and not just as beneficiaries, which need to be tokenistically included. So lack of space which is safe, inclusive, really in a meaningful way for young women, and of course men who work in this space, and broadly just the entire group who work in women peace and security, I think is one thing that I feel continues to circle around when young people try to work in this space. And there's been a lot of good work that's happening where, of course, a lot of organizations, civil society, local individual peace builders are working to address these issues. And there's a lot of powerful work that is happening in Pakistan, in the region, and around the world, which of course we can talk about in greater detail as we move forward, but just wanted to plant a few of those thoughts.
Thank you so much for painting those broad strokes for us.
Okay, thank you very much. I can answer that based on my own story because I started really young. I'm still young, but I started to fight for women when I was 18 years old. And speaking for myself, for me it was like, but can I do something that is like, does my voice really matter? And I know that when I speak that, I also speak for people that are here that maybe have wondered that, like, do I have age to bring resolutions, to do something? And what I understood is that maybe even if I don't have age, I must do something because I don't see something being done. So for us, young people, I believe because we are still like starting our lives, it's kind of easy to see potential in society and in reality that people that are older, they are kind of more used to it but they shouldn't. So what I understood when I was 18 years old, it was like a huge gap in terms of assistance of women. What happened it was that I returned from an exchange in Canada. I had access to education. I had a family that really saw potential in me and said, okay, let's invest in her. And what happened is that when I was going to Canada to study, there was a girl from North America going to Brazil. And we faced a very different experience. I was empowered in Canada. I understood more that I have my own voice, that I could go back to Brazil and look for people that share the same values as me, look for mentors. I was like getting tools that unfortunately 10 years back in Brazil I would not have. Like I would not have anyone giving me the advice for that. Like stay in school, you have to get accepted in university. After that, like you do something before you have to learn. But what happened is, when I was studying in Canada, there was a woman in Brazil. She suffered sexual violence there. And she was my age. She returned back to Canada. And then I was like, okay, in Canada, she don't have access to rape crisis centers or psychological assistance. But what if in Brazil, like, how the survivors of this gang group in Brazil will do? So I was like, okay, I will create a group because I don't see much being done. This is my group. I presented in the spaces that I was occupying, which was like the preparatory course for my university. So I just like wrote notes and give to my professor, okay, so my name is Vanessa. I want to create a project to support victims of rape. Who's with me? Who can help me? So that's how I started, and this is my advice to everyone that is here, but also to people that are in positions of power, to include our voices. And if you don't find a place, create one. Create as you go. And you know what? It's good that we start young, even if we don't have much tools, because as an 18 years old girl, I gained confidence. So every time that I was feeling shy or I was not even sure about what to say, I was like, okay, but I will do that for women. Because if I don't do that, who will? So, okay, I will put like my fears in my pocket and I will speak out. And I will talk to this person who is more powerful than me, or that I would like feel afraid of speaking up, because it's not about me, it's about a situation that needs to stop. So pick all of your insecurities and go ahead. Like, put that in part of like what you want for your life. So that's my advice.
So I was also very young when I first started. I was 16 and I started policy. I was a policy advisor for statewide policy, government women's council. And it was a very much opened my eyes to the kind of experiences and obstacles, especially around sometimes trying 10 times hard because of being brown, being queer, being a woman in Australia. It was always very much like opportunity would always be given to everyone else, and to people who were of color always have to fight and compete. And I think that's what society has created, a society where young people are all competing for opportunities. And I think that's the obstacle that we're facing, is that the way that we're establishing, when we're advocating for peace and security, we need to work together and collaborate with one another. And that is something that is often who's missing from it, who's doing those opportunities, who's doing that right to speak and to really get the pen. And we need to know what during my life was having people believe, like, mentally believe in me, having a CEO believe in me. When I was 17, she asked me to represent the organization for UNCSW back in 2017. And being the youngest woman in the room and just experiencing it. And then I was like, oh, God, I deserve to be here. But now I'm carrying, I don't deserve to be in that room and to sit in that table and showing the brothers. I'm carrying so much more than just myself in that room. I'm carrying our communities, we're carrying our ancestors, the power that, the fact that they've led us to be here today. And I think with education and that as being such a privilege, and so especially in my culture where being the first in my whole entire family to finish high school and university, broken those paradigms. And I think that's a thing where obstacles are created by the culture and society, but I think as well as the limited of like accessibility, and especially spaces that lack accessibility to those disabilities. I think there's a lot of understanding and awareness and time taken to really care and understand all spaces for that. And I think as well as when you're an advocate, especially doing the work of gender-based violence, you are most of the time a survivor. And a lot of the time, the work we do does burn us out to understand those boundaries. And I feel like a lot of the time, the biggest obstacle can be ourselves in the work we do. And I think that is something that we all need to work together on, shaping a healthy system where we are taking care of ourselves. We are facilitating spaces where we're healthy and good to live.
Awesome, thank you so much. This has been great. Yeah, give them a round of applause. I'm hearing a lot of things. I'm hearing the importance of exposing yourself to different situations, to different cultures, so that you can learn of what is missing from your homelands, and so that you can learn abroad and bring it back home. The importance of mentorship and having others see in you the potential that you often don't see in yourself. Because young people actually have that seed of justice and are actually like innately want to do something better for their own environment. So going along with that, I'm thinking in your own journeys in your own service and what you've done for WPS, what have you encountered? Because Mary, you mentioned some of the obstacles that do actually exist across countries and cultures. But what are some of the obstacles? But like, how did you achieve them? So like, what are some tactical things that we can learn from you today that you're like, wow, I didn't expect, for example, to partner with a men's organization, a men's fraternity, and they're sponsoring. So I don't know. Just like help us think about these creative things, about this collaboration you mentioned, about going over these barriers. So some ideas that you've faced in your journeys.
I think in a lot of ways, I think for me, those kind of solutions or creative ways to approach these obstacles have been looking at issues in an intersectional manner. And usually what that has done, of course, is that if I'm working, so peace building is a very broad term, of course, and we're talking within that is WPS and how even WPS has intersectionalities with climate change, with governance, with violence, legally, legislation, human rights, and so on. And so kind of how do you build on work in a way where its impact is amplified because you kind of do it in a way which is intersectional. So I've been working on, for example, the issue of citizen-centric governance and global governance within that as a tool to allow for citizens' needs to be heard and addressed in Pakistan. And we found very naturally and seamlessly how kind of WPS fit into that, right? And how, for example, women through this agenda and approach can become agents of change in a way that they already are, but kind of because they're already doing that work when disaster hits. They are the frontline responders, they are the ones who are affected quite disproportionately in the face of disasters. And how is it that through this agenda you're able to use existing work, which is its other issues, but that kind of multiply them. And I think that for me is a practice or an approach that I repeat thoroughly in my work. And an example of that would be, for example, that if you're working with local women counselors, which are in your district, and kind of working with them to do needs assessments on women's needs during disaster. And then building on that, using those women to train the staff of these emergency institutions who respond, etc. Kind of what it does is two-pronged, that it addresses the issue of governance and makes it more inclusive for women, but then it also addresses the issue of gender blindness in issues of conflict or times of conflict. So I think in a more thematic way, I wanted to share that that's one approach where you're able to tackle women's absence or lack of access in these spaces by kind of merging these issues together. And I think the other is really just trusting the community and the women in the community when you kind of work with them. And in a lot of ways, building work which is bottom up. And those can include really their own ways of addressing these issues. And many times I found storytelling to be a really great tool in this. So just trusting what the community's tools for speaking are and hearing them as they speak in their language and in their tune, right? So for some, if that's folklore, for others, if it's film, media, for others, it's classical dance and performative arts. Really just kind of relying and trusting those to build the people's power, because in a lot of ways, the challenges that you spoke about are the very reason why you kind of do what you do, right? And so within that, how do you, instead of relying on government, for example, to not repress dissent, how do you kind of be aware that there is that repression and then use your power? And in a lot of ways, that power is unique to women and even within women to different categories and identities in which women identify themselves. So really, I think just that's kind of an ethic that I try to practice when I work in this space of peace building and conflict resolution, which is such a broad one. And of course, I'm sure there's so many others that I'm missing right now, and would also be happy to hear from others on what this.
Okay, thinking about challenges, a lot of things come to mind when thinking about like 11 years of advocacy, and very aligned to what you just said. Being a women defender and the challenge that we face is pretty much aligned to what is being a woman in this world. So all the challenges that we are facing in terms of being heard, of people really understanding what we have to say and seeing that it's important is the challenge that all women are facing globally. So in the beginning, I was very surprised. I knew it was something important. It was a gap in society in Brazil. But then I would like present this, and I would hear things like, "That's just how the world is. Like, why are you trying to change? Men are like that. It's part of the nature of men to treat women this way because women, they have to stay in the house." Things like that. So like fighting like very stereotypes and how like to make my work and like help women when you have to kind of make people like, how can I say, you have to talk about taboo, which shouldn't be, you know. So one thing that helped me a lot on that, and that's my advice to everyone, either is fighting for women's rights or fighting for climate change or fighting for something that people don't want to fight for, or that they don't want to change because it's being beneficial to a very small population, which helps power. So you cannot understand there are people that don't want those challenges to change. So my advice for everyone here in this room is to think long term. If you think short term, you're gonna feel like you are failing a lot. And this can be very heavy in terms of fighting for women's justice, climate change, to eradicate poverty. It's not easy. So think long term and occupy spaces. So for example, even if you deliver a speech and you hear like questions that you don't like, people attack your work, you are putting like a seed into one of them. And I have seen things change. I have been delivering speeches and men would say like, well, but in the end, if a man chooses to assault, he will do because he can do that. And I was like, oh my God, that resonates to anyone. And like days after that, men who were like in that space saying, can you deliver again the speech? Or like, what can we do about that? So think long term, don't give up, because when you are occupying space, sometimes we don't track how much change we are doing. But that will continue appearing, people asking you to speak out, or people coming to you and saying, okay, based on what you said, I decided to group with this organization, and now we are doing that. So also keep in touch with us. So if anything that we say today resonates with you, and we have tools that maybe can help you. For example, now I'm more like in research area. Talk to us and maybe we can support each other. So once again, think about long term and occupy spaces that you can, even if it's a space that is not really connected to your area.
That's so true. Thank you so much. Yes, Regan?
Yeah. I believe we're all part of an ecosystem, and we all come with our different talents, our different skill sets, our different strengths. Having worked in climate, gender, race, having worked in policy side, NGO side, grassroots, collective organizing side, I've seen that the true, when it's all working together in one campaign, that's when the strongest campaigns succeed. And I believe the biggest challenge is often, yes, it is the funding, yes, it is the getting stakeholders, all of these things, but I think a lot of times, like when we are not thinking out of the box, we're just thinking, we're just looking at repeating the same mistakes over and over again, and we're not actually evaluating the decisions we're making, like actually evaluating what the tools and the techniques and like if it's actually working. And as well as we're not building a strong enough network with one another, we're all, if, for example, we're giving donations. Like, we're all the first of all, pretty much meeting in person is now, the first of all connecting is now. But imagine if we were able to connect before this conference and we're all able to work together, get to see who's in that space. And that way we could have made some of the future way more impactful and something that could take away. And I think a lot of this time when we're in these United Nations spaces, all we're doing is listening. But us as young people, we actually have so much potential and so much to offer. And that's why I need to challenge the way the system is working. And challenge the way that, the necessary needs of like reforming the processes that's being done, and to see like, we haven't achieved equality yet in the country. We've had so many CSWs, we had so many those commissions. When has actually been done? So I think now we just need to challenge the way things are being done. I hope that's.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about collaboration, a lot of multilateralism, a lot of intersectionality. It's really great that we're all here in this IYC space because you know it's gonna happen again next year. I think there's also a winter session, but Ali can correct me. Yeah. So you meet people here and you know that they're also working in conjunction aligned with your work too. So it's a great opportunity to just change phone numbers, even if you're not on the same continent. But I'll see you in 6 months. I'll see you in a year. And you'd be surprised how fast time like comes, you know? I was just in a conference in Kenya and I ran into colleagues that I haven't seen in like 5-6 years. Schwab is right here, happy birthday! Happy birthday! See, it's a whole interconnected world, just to prove my point. We all know each other. So I think it's time for some Q&A. If there's people in the room that have some questions and also online, I saw first hand go up here really quick and then there's a hand up here. Yeah.
Hello, thank you so much to the panelists and the moderator for this session. I think like a lot of important points were brought up. My name is Noor, I'm from Amman, almost 11 years, so half and half. And I just wanted to ask, because I think in the region of Pakistan and in Amman, there's a lot of stigma around surrounding feminist movements, especially in regions where like, feminism is viewed as a Western value or a Western propaganda. And so my question to you guys is, how do you overcome this perceived stigma in regions where feminism isn't really viewed as a universal movement, but more of a Western? Yeah. Thank you.
I think that's a very good question and important one. It's something that I, as a young advocate for gender equality and women's rights, have kind of dealt with and thought about. I think the question of language is what we're speaking about, and I think that's where the answer is in terms of how do you, as people of the country, of the community, think about these issues, which are of course global, but also how are they very unique to you and indigenous. So in a lot of ways, the feminist movement in Pakistan, where we have annual women marches, which is called the Aurat March, or which is the Urdu translation of woman, has received this kind of propaganda and has been labeled foreign funded and Western, etc. And really, I think one of the tools that the organization and the women participating have been able to do right is kind of speak to the local issues and why then that movement becomes important, and kind of borrow from local languages, local stories, local experiences, and indigenize a global movement. And I think that's a way in which you're able to show that understanding. So as a young woman, where you are in spaces where you are perhaps labeled as bandwagoning on a foreign agenda, having that understanding to speak in that room comes from when you really understand that issue and you understand why it is important in that local context. And I think that's something that I have built over the years, and I see around me women, of course, within that, of course, coalition, mentorship, alliances, these are all just other tools that we've already spoken about, just help to further build that power of women. But I think, yeah, I send you wishes for the work that you're doing in your country, and really more power to you for being able to respond to these biases and hold true to what you really stand for and why that is something that you will continue to fight for in case of other peace. So really thanks for that question. Thank you.
This 360. Yeah. It's like, yeah.
Hello, thank you. For personal reasons, I forgot about this agenda item. Women
Put your mic.
I mean, for personal reasons, I forgot about this agenda item, women and security, because we all know that in times of conflict, women and children are mostly affected when they are involved in armed conflict or in conflict situations. So, in particular, Afghanistan could be a perfect example for this. So, I would just want you to share what could be a continued support for women's leadership and resilience in terms of conflict prevention and recovery.
So could you repeat that last one? Solutions? Solutions for times of conflict. Yeah, we'll have all three and then we'll answer. So you all can ask and then we'll answer the questions.
Okay, I'm Mary from Nigeria. I think my question is specific about gender conflicts and especially in a society where we have, let me be specific about third world countries specifically, how patriarchy can subject and repress women. My question goes thus: how do women in general contribute or even promote or even reduce this misogynistic traits in the society? And coming to the first world countries like the US, we also face away questions about class, race, and gender. How will people follow? How can they overcome these things? Because every day you tend to meet all of these things. Either you meet them in the classroom, and the subway, or in a common place. That's really think about it. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. So my question is that, so I was very entertaining with this opportunity. Thank you for your time today. I wanted to ask, I wanted to ask for somebody who's interested in, maybe starting an organization, a nonprofit organization for women and girls supporting athletes and girls. You see that there's so many organizations, there's so many works out there for women and girls. So I want to ask you, and they range for all issues that affect women and girls. How do you differentiate yourself, and how do you contribute to this work without replicating someone else's work and copying, or not copying, but just replicating and do the same thing over again? Where do you find your niche? Where do you solve a problem, but you're bringing your own unique styles, but instead of just saying, just mimicking the same people over again?
Thank you so much for these questions. So I'm just gonna summarize them, and then we only have 5 more minutes. So in your responses, try to tie in as much as you can. First question, in essence, we're asking about solutions for women and children in times of conflict, correct? And then the second question, I'm hearing, what can we do for women to promote or to eradicate misogynistic trends, right? And for the last question, I got, how can one who's working in nonprofits towards women peace security, how can one differentiate themselves, and how can we kind of just do the work and stand out amongst so much other work. So whoever wants to take it first, solutions, misogyny. You have 5 minutes to solve these intense issues.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Wow. Some, not all of them.
Yes.
About 3 minutes each.
Wow. I feel as a co-management organization, a global organization, what made us different, I guess, was our team, and the work we're doing was very much unique. And I think the most important part is when you start an organization, is to look at who's around you, to look at the networks that already exist, not to repeat them, but maybe join forces and build one bigger organization. I think solutions, I think there's so much, I guess.
Solutions in moments of conflict, getting rid of these opposite trends, and differentiating ourselves.
So when I was in Australia, I was thinking about experiences. I feel like with conflict, when we organize protests, conferences, when we organize, the biggest thing is mutual aid, I think, as well. I think when we go hosting fundraisers, we raised over like $30,000 for Palestine the other week, and that was through Instagram, social media, that was through selling art, that was through set up our networks. I think community care in that way is the most important way, I think, is the biggest solution. And
Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you so much for this question. Okay, so answering about how to better protect people that are already vulnerable in the daily lives during conflict. So they are the ones that know their specific needs. Like, for example, which area is more dangerous for them. They know more than anyone the reality they face. So they should be the epicenter. They should be the ones actually telling the government what they need. And we have that. For example, humanitarian aid, we have access to that, and we should not underestimate our power. Even to report something that is not being done correctly. We have ICC, we have ICJ. So know also about like how you can report a crime as well. I know I'm talking about big scale right now, but don't underestimate your like local power to do something. And again, how is important to people that are in a vulnerable situation to speak out about their reality, because they are the ones who are going to bring the solution. But now I'm researching about GBV in the Amazon. And the first phase was for me to write solutions, for me to write recommendations. But I don't live there. It's easy for me to analyze everything that I learned in university and recommend some stuff, but they are the ones who are going to tell me what they need. So give power and give voice to them. Even like use the space that you have, the organization that you have, to come to them, understand how is the situation, and ask for support. And that you can do using like Instagram, using each tools that you have, and that's what makes you unique answering your question. How you differentiate yourself. How we, for example, one of my biggest tools was something that I was kind of embarrassed of, which is I wrote in English. But that's what differentiates me from the other ones. Yeah. It's from where I came from. So this is something that makes me unique. And if you are seeing that your work, for example, the one that I give, psychological assistance and legal support, there is a lot of organizations that are doing the same. I can group with them, and I can try to like cooperate with them, and from what I do, try to do something different. But anyway, I think we should be like active. We should do doing something, even though it feels like replicated. You're like bringing your own voice, and that's what is unique.
Just very quickly, I think most of it has already been said, but I think on solutions, in my context in Pakistan, I found, for example, economic empowerment and providing financial independence to be a great tool for women in conflict. I've also, my comparative analysis of other countries in the region and in Africa also found that that is true. So most often, I think really understanding community needs during times of conflict, which are being able to provide, for example, when floods hit my country in 2022 and 2/3 of the country was submerged in water, the source of income, which is agriculture, was destroyed, and so building programs which provides alternative livelihoods to those women is one way where you can provide that protection. And of course, protection and security are very personal things. A feeling of a sense of security for one woman or one community is different than another. And at times that can look like legal aid, for example. At other times it can look like digital literacy, education. So really, I think all of these are solutions that you build as a result of bottom-up, localized, community-centric engagements with the community. I think on the question about misogyny within women as a hindrance or obstacle, I think it's a very important question. It's one that I think most people who work in the space feel, and I think it's important because it reminds us of the systemic solutions that are needed. So it reminds us that how when you think of an intervention or you think of a solution, how it needs to be whole of society approach and how we need to kind of holistically understand all stakeholders engaged in a society. And I think really in that you kind of build on those approaches to really see what the community needs and how women can experience that shift, which I can also understand is years and patterns of being in a certain way, in a certain context. And I think very quickly on the last one, which is how to distinguish yourself as a person in the space. I think it's really just something that happens in the process, and it's something that as long as I think you stay true to where you started from and you kind of recenter yourself again and again, I think it happens quite naturally for most people as you continue to work. I think one thing that I will just add in that is, of course, the importance of radically practicing hope and love as a tool to kind of feel that anguish and rage towards injustice and to fight for justice through that. And just I think also additionally to not gatekeep knowledge and opportunities and resources and just share and just a hope, I think, for a better, more just world. So yeah, I think that's something.
But I think we're running short on time, so yeah, we can take a comment.
Just to finish the last question. I was affected on the part of bombs who provide food to homeless people. And that's another solution is to buy that community where we cook the food, we serve the food, and oftentimes the communities are most vulnerable are homeless communities. So just I'd like to help with obvious, when you have that access to resources such as food, don't always have to be money, but food, clothing, that is another way of sharing.
Comments?
Yes, thank you, right, ladies, for all this inspiring speech and inspiring group, sharing ideas, perspectives. And I have a suggestion. As we are, maybe some of us are leaders, some of us are youth activists, the others are leaders of leaders. So we are all inclusive here in this hall. So just a suggestion to have some session or some kind of discussion in the middle of sessions about men. Because we have men here, and without men, women can't do anything. Let's agree on it. Yeah, because God created men and then women. So it should be partial, 50-50. Let's keep it. Let's have many men. Besides family, let's have many men. Will you agree? Many men. Thank you so much. Not many. Okay.
For gender equality, right? The fight for gender equity rests on all our shoulders, so all our efforts in all our parts of our world, all the efforts of all these young women here on the stage. We're running short on time, so unfortunately I cannot give anyone else, but I just want to give a round of applause. Thank you. Please stick around to get some more programming happening and quick talking about some books that we have here for you all.
Very connected what you just mentioned about men participating. As a good master student, I have some suggestions of books. And in those books, there are also suggestions of how men can be like partners with us. How men can come to communities and give voices and empower the women as well. For example, we have a very good journalist that he travels the world and he interviews women. He uses like his collective to support. So talk to us up here. Let's keep this discussion alive. Thank you so much.
Can I take a quick photo? Yes. My favorite task